Hello! So, question of the day, can we stop all the crying? Can we get to a point where your baby doesn't cry at all? Do we want that? How could it work? Would it be amazing? Well, that's what we're going to talk about this morning. So we're going to talk about the main reasons why babies cry, what you can do about those reasons, and then what to do about the other crying, and whether it has reasons or not, and how to deal with it. So that's the topic for this morning. I'm Roya, and I've helped hundreds of families over the last 7 years with their communication with their baby. I love to teach parents how to understand their baby better, and I love to give you your family tools so that your baby can cry less and you can be calm and confident parents, and also to give you the room and the tips to teach your baby your heritage languages so that they can grow up multilingual, successful, happy, and have relationships with all your extended family. I love all this stuff, it makes me really excited. So, can we stop all the crying? It does seem the thing to do when your baby's crying to try and stop them crying, right? And we talk about a lot of things here in the infant communication world that help you stop your baby cry. So what are the main reasons for crying? Well, the three main reasons the babies cry are because they're tired, they're hungry, or they're uncomfortable, something to do with their nappy being full, or even they might be crying before they fill their nappy because they need to pee and poo and they're feeling discomfort, they have bellyache, or they feel that their bladder is full. So I have a video about what to do about those three things. I will link it below so you can go watch it. That's the place, a good place to start when it comes to reducing crying for your baby. What other reasons do babies cry? Well, they cry when they're sick. So look out for that, of course. Do they have a temperature? Are they showing other symptoms for being unwell? Babies cry for things related with development. So it could be that you have a small baby from birth to 6 months. Many babies suffer from reflux, and reflux is where their development, like there's a valve here somewhere that's not quite working properly yet. It's not developed properly, and so some of their milk gets spit up. It doesn't stay down in the stomach, but it comes up with stomach acids, and that's really uncomfortable for a baby. And then they're spitting up, they're vomiting their milk, and that also is going to lead to a lot of crying. There's things that you can do to support them with that. One of the best things to do is after you've fed your baby, or while feeding the baby actually, is keep them upright, don't lay them flat. So if you're nursing a baby that has reflux, you can have them, instead of like holding them and then nursing your breast this way, but have them sit sort of upright on your knee if they're tall enough, or if they're small you can recline a bit, so they're laying on your belly this way, and they're drinking that way. And then for some time afterwards, don't lay them down flat, keep them up so that all the milk, hopefully the gravity can help the milk stay down. And the same for a baby who's been bottle fed, keep them upright, keep them on your shoulder, or if it's a bit too much to hold them, where you put them down in a rocker or even in their bed, make it a little bit inclined to put a cushion under their mattress, for example. So, I'm giving lots of tips. I was just going to list the reasons why babies cry, and here I am giving you solutions. I can't help it. So it could be reflux. And then, we can get into talking about colic. Colic is where babies cry for several hours every day. And it could be, in some cases, that the cause of crying is never actually found out. So what do you do if your baby has colic? Well, the first thing to do is to eliminate all the other things. Make sure they're not crying because they're tired, hungry, uncomfortable, have reflux. Another thing that could contribute to a lot of crying, like colic, or just general crying, is that babies are uncomfortable. Some babies are highly sensitive, so that could mean that there's like a label somewhere in their clothes that's like digging in, or they're too hot or they're too cold, and these things also can lead to a lot of crying. Another thing that could lead to crying is overstimulation. Now, this is a whole other topic and a whole other video, but do you believe that your baby gets bored? Do babies get bored? Or do they get overstimulated? Wow, big topic. I think we'll do that another day. Tips for that another day. Okay, so we've discussed some reasons why babies cry, a few tips for what you can do about it, or look out for further information and videos coming up for those things. Now, I want to introduce you to Magda Gerber. It might be Magda Gerber. I think it's Gerber. I need to look that up. But I want to read a quote from her. She was a wonderful baby professional, and she has had a big impact on my parenting. She really observed children, saw them as whole people already from birth, that they're a whole person with likes and dislikes, with sensibilities. They, of course, are developing into the person that they're going to be, but they're already born as a whole person that deserves our notice and our respect. And I have a quote here from her that I would like to read for you. So it starts with, "It seems so much easier to do something about crying, to pick the baby up, move around, take them for a ride, pat or bounce." Now, we've all tried those things, haven't we? Bouncing baby on the shoulder, going for a walk. Something that always helped my children was putting them in the pushchair or the pram and just going outside into the fresh air. And my daughter, I found she would sleep so much better outside on the balcony. Less crying, more sleep, happier baby. And she never got sick. It was really good for her immune system. So of course we can try all of those things. Then I continue the quote. "When the baby cries, the first step should be to try to determine why he cries, rather than to try to stop the crying." Okay, so that's what we do here. I talk about let's stop the crying, but I want to stop the crying before it starts. So we can identify the main causes of crying, why babies cry, and try and keep, ourselves in a situation where we're meeting the needs and wants of the baby before they have to cry for those things. We'll get onto that a little bit more as we continue with this quote. She continues by saying, "When you have eliminated hunger and the other standard discomforts, and the baby is still crying, that is the time to tolerate crying, even to respect the infant's right to cry." So here she mentions some of the main causes of crying, like hunger. And if you've eliminated those standard discomforts and your baby still cries, well, that's normal. Babies cry. Now, if it's at the point where it's become colic and it's for hours and hours every day, that is less normal, and we can work on that with the methods that I share, but also a doctor perhaps needs to get involved to find out why there's colic. Thought of another reason why babies cry. Many babies have issues with their neck and shoulder and back. They're in pain, so that's another thing to check that they're not in pain. That also helps if you have a nice check that they're not in pain. That also helps with sleeping. Some babies don't sleep because they're in pain. So some parents find it really helpful to go to an osteopath or somebody that a chiropractor that specialises in babies. You have to go to someone who has experience with babies. And it might just be one adjustment and you find that your baby comes home another child happier and more relaxed. Okay, so continuing with this idea from Magda, this is the time to tolerate crying, even to respect the infant's right to cry. So your baby's crying, you've eliminated all the discomforts and your baby's still crying. What do you do then? That's really hard to cope with. We had that a lot with our first child. It used to cry and cry, especially in the evenings around the witching hour. And we had tried everything we could to figure out why he was crying. And sometimes you just will never know. And that's something we have to expect and we have to accept as parents. We cannot raise a child that never cries, not even once, because that's not normal, is it? But listen to the next part, it's really lovely. So what can you do when your baby's crying? Well, You might want to say, I'm here for you, but I don't know what you need. Try to tell me. Isn't that a lovely way to approach the crying baby? We're on the same team with the baby. So if they're crying, they're trying to communicate something. They're not okay for some reason or another. And even if we don't know the reason, we can still emphasize with them, okay? And have empathy. Empathize with them. And have empathy and compassion. Not always easy when we're frazzled and we're tired and we just want the baby to stop crying. But you're working together on building a relationship and a bond with that baby, and that doesn't always come naturally. So this could be a game changer. The last part, you can, say to your baby, try and tell me what you need. Even to a tiny infant. From 0 to 6 months, from 6 months to 18 months, even with a baby who can't talk yet, or even sign. Ask them, try and tell me what you need. Maybe they can show you somehow. Maybe they just need a hug. Maybe they just need to be left alone. Some babies need to be left alone. And that's hard and scary. I had that a little bit, I think, with my first son too, that, I'm like mixing up the babies now. Hold on. With my son, he used to cry a lot, and it didn't make a difference if I sat with him or not. So I would take little breaks because I couldn't cope with the crying anymore. But then I would go back and check on him and sit with him and hold his hand. And then when the crying was too much, I would take a little break. Leave him for a few minutes. With my daughter, she tended to want to be left alone, actually. She slept better in her bed. So I would put her down and leave her. And that was what she needed. Even though that was not my instinct to leave the baby, I wanted to hold her and hug her and protect her and comfort her. She didn't need it. So I had to put her down. So you're getting to know your baby and what their needs and wants are. This is the last part of the quote, and it's probably the most important part. Tell your babies what you feel. If this is what you feel, that you're trying to communicate with your baby, if you're trying to find out why they're crying and you want to know and you want to help them, if that's what you feel, share it. This is the beginning of communication. Isn't that lovely? So sometimes it might be, we have to turn around our way of thinking. How are we thinking about the crying? Is it a nuisance? Is it something that we have to get rid of? Or is it your baby communicating? So that's interesting, isn't it? I find it so interesting. So although I talk a lot about stop the crying, let's stop the crying, we have to be realistic in what we can manage. And of course, it's really nice to meet our child's needs and wants and understand them and their body language so that we can do that. And that's a huge part of what I'm all about in my work. But at the end of the day, there will be some crying that we can't solve. And when that happens, we can tell our baby, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I want to help you. I don't know what you need. Can you tell me? And, see if they can or they can't. And then be there. See what works. Does it work if you stay with the baby? Is it better if you give them some space? Does it work more if you hold them? Does it work more if you put them down? Okay, keep looking for solutions. A great thing that got me through a lot of the infant stages, and I know it works for a lot of mums, is to remember this will pass. And I have to reassure you that we don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. No mum has all the answers. Okay, the best thing that we can do is share what works for us, because it might work for someone else. But we need to talk to each other. We need to parent together in a village, in a community, and not alone. And that way we can find many solutions to the problems that we have with our babies, but this will pass. Okay, babies go through phases, and some of those phases feel really long, but they're actually really short, right? It's true what they say, that when you have a baby at home, the days feel endless, but the months feel so short. So, yeah, I just want to say, if you're experiencing a lot of crying and it's too much for you to bear, consider talking to a doctor. And if you're experiencing a lot of crying, but you think that the tips that you're getting here is going to help you reduce that amount of crying and you can cope with it, great, keep watching these videos because I've got lots of ideas for you and you might find a solution that will help your family. And if you have a baby that doesn't cry at all, I don't believe you. That's impossible. So crying is communication, all right? And so we can even, to a small extent, welcome the crying as your baby telling you stuff. Right, this has been a helpful video. What do you think? How will it help your family? Which was the best tip for you? Or what are you going to try out this week with your baby to try and strengthen your communication together? I would really love to know your reaction to this video. And yeah, this is actually a Facebook Live in my Facebook group, Hey Facebook Buddies, but I'm going to upload it to YouTube too. So if you're joining us on YouTube, you know what to do. Subscribe, hit the bell, go and watch some other videos, and let's see if we can reduce the amount of crying. Let's stop the crying as much as possible in your family home. And I will see you next time with other thoughts about crying, being a mum. Courage. You got this. You can do it. Courage, courage. Keep going. This will pass.